This is the Money Seed Podcast, where we discuss all things investing, plain and simple, the way it should be. Please remember, this show is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be investment advice. Welcome back to the Money Seed Podcast. My guest today is Travis Freeman, and we are talking about finding success early in life. Travis, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Gabe. Good to be here. And I got to tell you, I enjoyed one of your recent episodes on franchising and how people can jump in, whether it's service-based or something else. I think that episode would tie in really well with everything we're going to do today.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll touch on that later in the show. Travis, you're an author, you're an entrepreneur, you're a certified financial planner. And one of the things that caught my eye was that you found financial success in your 20s. You know, most people don't find financial success until their 40s. That's when usually your wealth starts taking off and the magic of compound growth starts to kick in. So most first-time millionaires find their first million in their 40s. You did it a few decades earlier. Maybe tell us a little bit more about your background and what did you do differently in your 20s than what most other people do?
Sure. So, some people might call it a curse. I call it a blessing. Whenever I was much younger, my family went through a pretty ugly divorce and custody battle. Lasted about 3 years. And we went from an average middle class, lower middle class family down to being on food stamps with my mom for a while. And I was old enough to know that our financial reality changed significantly, right? And I sort of became obsessed with why and how and what we could do to get out of that. And luckily, my family worked hard and got out of it. But that created this fascination with money at a really early age. And I remember even telling my younger brother when we'd go out and play, I said, I want to invent something today. I want to create something and challenge myself, right? And I think I was 12 years old, something like that. And that turned into studying it at college. I knew exactly what I wanted to study when I went to college. A lot of my friends were trying to figure it out. I stuck with it and actually started my career path at 19. So I'm in the St. Louis, Missouri area. I was one of the youngest people in Missouri history to ever have a professional insurance license. Now, I'm not in the insurance game anymore, but that was my first foray into my career path. So you say, hey, how did I do it so young? I think it's because I sort of stumbled into this path of this financial journey and then just wanted to start early, and compounding benefited me. And in my late 20s, I hit that magic number you mentioned.
And Travis, for those who don't know, what is a professional insurance license and what does that allow you to do?
Yeah. So what I was doing at 19, I got a quote unquote internship. What the internship meant was, hey, Travis, come in here, pass this exam. You're going to get professionally licensed, and you can then speak with people about life insurance and health insurance and accident insurance, right? Now, that internship didn't last for long. It was a hardcore sales job, did not like it, but I learned a lot, including being professionally licensed, same kind of license that someone at 60 might have these days, right? But at 19, so I stuck that right on my resume and it helped me get other gigs while I was still in school.
Because I was going to say, I would have been really surprised if you would have told me that at age 19 you started selling insurance, right? Because I imagine someone in their 20s and 30s looking at a 19-year-old kid, that would have been an interesting sale. But so it sounds like you use that as a stepping stone to get more credibility on your resume and to spin that into more impressive roles.
Yeah, and for the record, I was selling insurance, but I didn't say I was successful at it. So you are right, Gabe. That was a stepping stone to help me get into the next gig.
Cool. And so tell me what you're up to these days. I know that you have a very successful book. It was an international bestseller. Let's start there. Tell us about the book. I believe it's called The Fortune of Youth. Tell us about the book and what can people learn from reading the book.
So The Fortune of Youth is all about what can you do at a relatively young age. When I say relatively young age, think 20s, 30s, 40s. Okay, because I think about lifespan as getting into your 90s. So if someone's 48 years old and they go, oh, what could I learn from a book about youth? A lot, right? Look at how much life you still have ahead of you. So what I've found in my practice, so I've been doing this about 20 years. And what I've found from a lot of the folks that I serve, I serve a lot of entrepreneurs and folks that have sold businesses and they're worth anywhere from a couple $1 million to $100 million. And I look at all the things that these highly successful, really good people have done in their lives. And they've taken certain risks. They've thought a certain way. They've behaved. They've created systems. They've taken risks. And I crammed it all into this book, combined with the things that I did early in life so that if somebody wants to be on a specific financial path, maybe you don't want $100 million, maybe you'd retire and be fishing every day well before that. That's great. But whatever that person's definition of success is, this book is a roadmap on how.
Got it. Travis, for someone who is in their 20s and they're just trying to find their financial footing, let's start with advice. I mean, most people just have the regular advice: get a job, get a W-2, maybe like 50, 30, 20 type budget, save 20% of your income and hope for the best by the time you're 50, 60. It sounds like you did something different. And maybe what do you advise your clients to do? And what are some of the things that people can do to think outside that box?
Sure. So I think for the most part, everybody falls into one of two buckets. Either you are going to be an entrepreneur and you want to have your own business, right? Maybe it's a side gig while you have a W-2 salary job, but or you're just going just full feed in, you're going to start a business, right? Or someone says, you know what, I don't think I'll ever do that because that's so much risk. I wouldn't sleep at night. I want to focus on my family. I'd rather just have a good career, right? So you fall into one of those two buckets. If you fall into the entrepreneur bucket, starting young, taking risks, never giving up, if your first two business adventures fail, use those. Those aren't failures. Those are learned lessons. I've had businesses that have failed and I've learned a lot from them. But I don't give up. And guess what? Out of 10 different ventures or investments, I'm planning on a couple of them not working out, but a couple of them breaking even and the other ones hopefully being wild successes, right? Then if somebody falls into the other side of the bucket, they'd rather just have a really good career path, be really good at their job, be valuable at their employer. There's a lot that somebody can do. Let me give you a great example with math. Someone at the age of 25, two people at 25, one person says, hey, I'm going to take this job making $48,000 a year, and I see a pretty good growth path. Another person says, why would you do that? I want to make more money. I want to have the car. I want to have the apartment. I'm going to take this job at $70,000 a year. Well, if the $48,000 gig a year has 4% cost of living adjustments, right? 4% inflation. And the $70,000 gig is only 2%. That cross point is somewhere in the mid 40s. And the person who took the lower paying job is actually making almost $100,000 more later in life than the other person. So the thing I would say to someone who's on the career path part, if they're young, you have to focus on the growth potential. Yes, I know you want to make the most money possible, but sometimes take one step backwards for 3 steps forward a decade from now. But you got to plant those seeds now. You don't want to waste your time.
I think that's such good advice. And I think that is good advice for investments and finances in general, is that you have to think long term and you have to give 2-3 decades for compounding to work. In this case, the compounding is the growth, right? Is the growth of the salary. In most other cases, compounding can be the growth of your investment, growth of your business or whatever. But you have to stop thinking linearly, start thinking exponentially and give it a few decades. I think that is fantastic advice. Tell me a little bit more about your clients. What does your ideal client look like?
So most of my clients have a lot of complexity going on. They have multiple business entities, a couple different trusts, some children that may or may not be involved in the business. So you got to make sure things are fair, and fair may not always be equal between the different kids. So it's well beyond investment management. People usually think, oh, financial planners handle investments. That's certainly true, but there is so much that wraps around that in a complex family. So a lot of my clients are they own family-owned businesses, or they're an executive with a bunch of equity comp or options or something like that. A lot of complexity going on, and me and my staff, we help simplify all that so they can focus on what they do, growing, and more time with their family.
When you work with your clients, it sounds like you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, people with family businesses, etc. What advice can you give to people who are maybe just starting out on their entrepreneur journey? They're just opening their first business. What are some of the things people overlook?
It's an excellent question. I too often, and I even fell for this too, Gabe. Too often, people will try to do way too much on their own and not seek out help, even when they have to pay for it. And it's amazing how much help you can get for free, right? Just by asking someone for help. People are generally good in the world and they'll give you help for free. But I started a technology company back in 2013, something like that. It was a financial technology company. And I ended up meeting with another guy who had sold a business for tens of millions of dollars that was started a similar company and sold it. And he said, Travis, here's the way you need to go when you build your business. I thought, boy, neat guy. And then I actually got into it and I didn't completely follow his advice. And you know what? I look back and he was 100% right. And you know what I wasted? I wasted 2 years of time and a six-figure sum that I don't want to tell anybody about in learning things. So what I would tell a younger entrepreneur that's just starting out with something, franchise, consulting gig, side business, whatever it is, seek out a consultant, seek out help. Even if you're going to pay for it, you might pay thousands of dollars to somebody and save 2 or 3 or 4 years of your life and put yourself on a much faster trajectory. And 40 years from now, you're going to look back and go, that was so wise for me to do, instead of a hard lesson learned, 6 figures wasted, and a lot of time wasted.
I agree. I think if somebody is starting a business for the first time, they've never, up to that point, they were working for someone else. They start going out on their own. They want to start their own business, be an entrepreneur. Investing 6-figure sums, I think, is quite risky, just because a lot of businesses have a high failure rate in general. It's very hard to go and run a successful business, especially if that's your first time doing it. And I'd say, okay, if you're going to invest like 6 figures, have a proven track record, or give yourself a higher chance of succeeding. That's why your earlier comment about the franchising, I think, is quite appropriate here. Or if you do want to start your own gig, your side gig, side hustle, don't invest 6 figures. You can start a pretty amazing little side hustle for like 10 grand, 20 grand. And you know what? It might fail, but you still only lost 10 grand or 20 grand. You didn't lose a big chunk of money. So I think if somebody's starting out for the first time in their 20s, 30s, and they don't know a lot about business, they're just learning, don't invest 6 figures into something that's unproven. That to me sounds like a really big hit in your late 20s, early 30s.
It's a big risk, right? And sometimes it might pay off. But even if someone starts investing a small sum, your time is so valuable. And I mean, you may not think it because you're not making any money, but my goodness, I think about what that entrepreneur is going to look like 5-10 years from now, and their time is so valuable. Seek advice to shorten the lesson curve. I mean, it's just so worth it.
And the other thing you mentioned is, okay, so you start a business, it fails, so what, right? Take your lessons learned, do it again. And by the time you get to your second or third or fourth business, you'll figure it out. I probably have at least 2 business failures myself as well, right? And I still have a 9-to-5 job, right? And I have a couple of side hustles. So it takes time. It takes time to figure it out. I always think people who hit the home run on their first business they ever start, I think that's maybe some of that's luck. Maybe they should count their lucky stars. But it is a journey, and it does include a few failures along the way.
You got it right.
Tax planning. So tell me, what is it about entrepreneurs and taxes that maybe people overlook? And do entrepreneurs pay more taxes, less taxes? What does that look like for an entrepreneur?
Sure. So entrepreneurs, that are self-employed, of course, yes, are generally going to pay more tax because of self-employment tax and maybe other business taxes than the W-2 employee, right? But so here's my view of tax planning, Gabe. Many people, they go to a tax professional. Tax planning is a 1-year process, right? You're looking at what happened that year, what can you deduct, and you add up your mileage and all these things. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. You do all these things. But tax planning, in my mind, is more of a 10-year, 20-year long process. So when I think about tax planning, I'm not just focused on how does someone reduce their taxable income that year. I'm thinking, what steps could we take today that'll actually give you and your family members more tax-free or after-tax wealth 10 years, 20 years from now? So whereas CPA is certainly trained really well to think in the zone, what's happening this year? How can we reduce taxes? That's good. But I usually try to take those blinders off and go, great. In addition to that, what else could we do that looks outside the box to reduce lifetime income taxes? A very simple example is Roth IRAs, right? Roth type accounts, right? It's a simple example. There are a lot of other things. There's tax loss harvesting, and there's using municipal securities and all kinds of things on an investment portfolio that someone can do that might end up helping them over time with after-tax wealth part of it depends on what bracket somebody's in, but now you kind of see my thought process there. It's not a 1 year deal.
Got it. About financial independence and early retirement, I know like I live here in Silicon Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's a lot of talk about FIRE, right? Financial independence, retire early. It sounds like it's something you could have done in your 20s and 30s, but here you are. You didn't do that. You're here making a difference and helping people. What would you say to somebody in their late 20s, early 30s who says, look, I just want to make a lot of money and stop working? Is that a reasonable, or do you think there's more to life?
I mean, look, if that's what's going to bring somebody joy, do it. But the reason that is not a goal for me, what the hell would I do with myself? I mean, number one, I want to show my kids the value of work. I want them to see me getting ready for work and challenging myself and volunteering on boards and doing all these things. If I was retired already, I have two 10-year-old boys, identical twin boys at home that are looking to me about what a man is supposed to look like as they grow up, right? So that's part of it. The other thing is, let's just say, people will often tell me, Gabe, hey, Travis, I want to build all this wealth and sell my business, and I want to be done by 45 or 50. You say, well, great. Well, what do you want to do with your time? Oh, gosh, I'd love to travel more. I want to see Europe. I want to hang out in my cabin in Colorado in the Rockies and fish more. How much time do you reasonably want to spend doing those things? I don't know. If I could do that, 6, 8 weeks a year, great. You can have a career that is more passive, right? You can own a business and hire somebody to run the company, still be engaged, volunteer on boards, still challenge yourself, and travel. And frankly, even the W-2 job, right? If somebody's in the non-entrepreneur track, you can find and negotiate with an employer to be able to have 6 to 8 weeks of vacation and still work a normal job, and you still checked off the things on your list. So FIRE, I get it. That's the reason that I don't usually advocate for that, but I respect if it's a goal, because you can usually get the things that you want in life and have a challenging, fun career at the same time.
And that's what I keep hearing. I mean, a lot of the stories about the FIRE movement is exactly like you're saying. A lot of people, they quit, they start traveling, they start doing all the things they always wanted to do. And after 2 or 3 years, they get bored and they start and doing something again, right? Because usually people who are in that position, they have a lot of skills, they're really good at something. And after a while, you get bored of doing nothing and you want to apply yourself, you want to make yourself useful again. And so people end up doing some kind of mixture of work and travel and free time, and they kind of figure it out. It's quite interesting to see how quickly people can get bored of doing nothing. So,
and do more for society, right? If you have a
yes,
unique skill set and you can do something like that and grow a company and employ 50 more people, you should do it. You really should do it, unless you just don't want the risk anymore. Imagine if Elon Musk retired already. Look at all these companies that we wouldn't have today that are pushing the envelope, right? Help society out. Keep on going.
100%. About helping society, tell us a little bit more about your what's the word? Your foundation. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. Your foundation.
Sure. So it's technically an endowed scholarship that my wife had set up with my alma mater. So we set up. I was the first guy in my family to earn a bachelor's degree. So we really believe in education, right? I could give you a fish every day, or I could teach you how to fish, and you'll eat for a lifetime, right? So what we did was we set up this endowed scholarship that will pay for first generation students, help them go to college, help them afford it. And I believe that is one way to generationally change the direction of a family, especially for families that have never had a child and had a member go to college, right? College isn't the only option. If my kids don't want to go to college and start a business, I'll respect it all the way. But I think for many people, good education unlocks a lot of doors, makes you well-rounded. And the fact that this thing is going to live on beyond when my wife and I are off this earth is a pretty neat feeling.
Very cool. Travis, where can people reach out to you to learn more about you and your business and your practice?
Sure. To hear more, to learn more, to ask questions, they can go to growthinfo.com. Growthinfo.com. There's a link to the book there, but also there's content on entrepreneurship, risk, and all the way I view these things. And there's a little contact section there too, if anybody cares to.
Fantastic. And I'll put a link to the book in the show notes as well, in addition to Growth Opportunity Partners, etc. Travis, thank you very much for spending time with us today.
You bet. Gabe, appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Money Seed Podcast. please remember to click like and subscribe. It really helps spread the message to other investors, and it helps attract new viewers to the show. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much.